Yo, first things first, I want to preface this by saying that I live in the state of Ohio where cannabis is legal and been legal for about 2 years now. So, and lucky for me, I'm coming off a 3 year, I guess, tolerance break. At some point, I decided to quit smoking weed entirely, but I just recently started smoking again. So I guess I have a bit of an advantage against other stoners in the way that the weed sometimes does come on a bit too heavy. However, that also allows me to judge its effects on my body better, I guess. And I also want to say that whenever I smoke, I use a raw wick with beeswax. It's like $12 and you get 100 feet of it, so it'll basically last you like, I don't fucking know, 3 years. And the reason I use a wick now is because one time upon my 5th smoke session of the day, I decided to test the theory out where if you light cannabis with a wick, it preserves more terpenes in cannabis, which means you can taste it better, but also the effects of those terpenes are intensified, at least in my experience, because I gave it to a buddy of mine and he said, well, no, he actually agreed with me and he's now using a wick. And the reason why he's using a wick is because whenever you smoke for the 5th time for that day, you don't expect to get as high as if you would have been smoking for the first time. But whenever I hit the weed with the wick, I got so fucking stoned, I could not believe it. So since that day, I'm never using a lighter ever again. I swear on everything it works. I don't care what anybody tells me about the lighters or torches. It works, and the reason why it works is because the terpenes kind of melt down and give in their effects at around 200 to 600 Fahrenheit. And if you use something like a Bic lighter that burns at around 1900 Fahrenheit, or something like an Eagle torch lighter that burns at way over 2000, then the terpenes kind of get damaged by that, or they kind of get vaporized. But a wick burns at exactly 200 to 600 Fahrenheit, maybe higher. And let me put you on some game here. They say to light the wick with a Bic lighter and then use it. But what I usually do is I split the wick with scissors in two, and then what I do is I light one end of the wick with a Bic lighter, and then I transfer the flame to cool it down even more onto the second wick piece, and then I light the weed with that. I swear to God, it works. I don't care what anybody tells me. I'm not using lighters on weed ever. Anyhow, I went out and I got some gelato, and that's exactly what I smoked before recording this. But what I usually do is I smoke weed and I go on a walk. I mean, don't get me wrong, playing games and smoking weed is also entertaining, and I do that as well. But trust me, it's a lot more entertaining if you actually smoke it and go on the walk. So what I usually do is I hit the weed and then start walking at about the same time every time. So whenever I get to a certain place in that area, that's where weed usually peaks for me. So I can compare different strains, and like even right now, like I have 4 different strains on me. So anyways, gelato. Gelato is the Mercedes of weed. 55% indica dominant, and mine came in at 24% THC. I also want to say this weed is kind of like a creeper weed. Like, it doesn't immediately punch you in the face, probably because it's 45% sativa, so you kind of energize doing whatever you have been doing prior to smoking weed, and then boom, like you're underwater. This strain for some reason made me feel confident and sort of talkative. I don't know why, because usually weed just makes me paranoid. Weed that makes me confident, I'm not sure about that one, because I like to remember the good old days when I used to tweak off that shit, you know what I mean? So even though it's 55% indica, it feels like a 60, maybe 65 to 70% indica. Like I said, I was doing things in the backyard. I go in the house, I walk out the front door, and boom, I'm underwater. But again, because of that 45% sativa in there, it doesn't couch lock you, which is just perfect. This weed, on top of giving you a sort of a confidence boost, literally makes you feel like you're riding in the Mercedes. By the way, if you're riding in a Mercedes, smoke this strain. Okay, not while you're driving, okay? Then you're gonna go to jail. But what I mean is, if you like that sense of swagger and things being expensive and high quality, Gelato is exactly that. Taste wise, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a big taste nut. I will literally like daily smoke weed that smells like chemical hazard and body rot. I will say this though, the smoke is very harsh on my throat, and this weed tastes like one of those weeds I smoked back in the day when I didn't know the name of the strain, but it was very loud. That's the thing about Gelato, like it's just fucking loud, bro. Also, given that it's grown right, but from my personal experience, it's grown right, okay? Also, people say the strain causes euphoria, but I haven't really noticed a lot of euphoria. Maybe my definition of euphoria is different. My definition of euphoria in cannabis is when you smoke some indica heavy bud, like 80%, and it hits you like fucking heroin. Like, that's my definition of euphoria. And it feels like Gelato doesn't have enough indica to push you over the edge into that euphoria. Also, a unique thing about Gelato, or maybe I'm just a noob, correct me if I'm wrong, but Gelato made me feel relaxed and kind of tired at first, and then as the high goes on, it makes you more and more alert. That's what I'm saying. Never underestimate sativa. Even at 45%, it has such a big comeback to the point where not only it doesn't couch lock you, but it makes you more energized, so you can go and do your things instead of literally falling asleep. Although this is a indica dominant hybrid, this strain is very interesting. Now I see why the opinions on relaxed versus energized are so divided, because at first I was ready to rate this weed as something relaxing, but now it became energizing. So I guess this is a perfect hybrid. But if we take something like animal mints, for example, a literal perfect hybrid, more people report that it's more relaxing than energizing. So maybe sometimes to be a perfect hybrid, you kind of have to be imperfect. Okay, but in reality, it's most likely because animal mints has marcine, the terpene that's responsible for the high's heaviness. Mix that with Linalool and you're gonna have that dreamy feeling to your high. Yeah, this is like absolute like Playboy Cardi weed, man. This is like, you know how OG Cardi was always like relaxed, but like always happy and smiling, always had that swagger on him. Not like right now. I'm not sure what he's smoking now. But anyways, this was the review of Gelato. Let me know if you want me to review animal mints